Things weren't any better when he arrived in New York City, because at the time, Ed Koch was still mayor. Well, it was the beginning of the cleanup that was happening in New York City at the time, because it's still one of the most dangerous cities in the United States. And back then, it was even more dangerous because there was a lot of crime, there was a lot of drugs, and there was a lot of prostitution on the streets. So it was the beginning of that cleanup. And things were very tough for my dad because he had to do a lot of dead-end jobs, like most immigrants. And a year later, he started working at a bodega, and that's where he met my mom. My mom did not come to this country illegally. She came with a visa with her extended family from the Dominican Republic. My mom is from Santo Domingo, which is the capital city of the Dominican Republic. I went there a lot as a kid, and they have a lot of beach resorts. They actually filmed one of the Pirates of the Caribbean films there, so it's a very nice place, especially if you're looking for a vacation getaway. Like my dad, my mom also had to work a dead-end job when she arrived here in New York City. She worked at a sweatshop factory in Long Island where they made sweaters, sports sweaters, and she worked there with her family for minimum wage. My parents had no choice. They had to work at these dead-end jobs to provide for their family. And my mom came here and she was only 17. She was very young. Her main prerogative was to work. My parents met at a bodega, they started dating, and they had one of their first dates at the World Trade Center. They actually went on top of the towers, and that was 12 years before 9/11. When the towers eventually fell. My folks got married way too fast and way too young. And you would expect for them to marry in a fancy church like most people, but that's not the case. My parents did not have enough money to have a luxurious wedding like that. So instead, they got married via legal means in front of a courthouse because it was quick, fast, and cheap. They got married a year after they met. And my sister was in the womb when they got married in front of the courthouse. When my sister was born, my mom was not expecting to have a redheaded child like her favorite singer, Mick Hucknall from Simply Red. My mom really likes new wave bands from the 80s because the British new wave and the new romantics took over the 80s at the time, and she was a huge fan. Her favorite band was Simply Red, and the main singer happens to be a redhead, so she wasn't expecting that. Very strange. And if you're wondering where the red hair comes from, apparently on my dad's side, his grandmother happened to have red hair, and she was a full-blooded Spaniard. Now, I'm not so sure about my mother's side. According to something that I researched, I heard that in order to have the red-headed gene, both parents need to have it, so maybe my mom's side also has a red-headed gene, but I'm not so sure about that. 4 years later, after my sister was born, I was born, and I came into the picture. I'm a 90s baby, born in 1994. Growing up with my parents definitely was not very easy because they were a really young couple. And like I said before, my dad was in his early 20s and my mom was in her late teens. At that age, your brain isn't developed fully. You're not mature at that age. My parents were really young and they went through a lot of hardships together in the 90s. And I had to witness their high highs and their low lows growing up. And it was very difficult. But then again, is there such thing as perfect parents? Is there such thing as the perfect couple or the perfect marriage? There will be fights, there will be arguments, and there will be differences. You can't expect everything to be perfect. I grew up in a very controlled environment. I was raised the old school way, the authoritarian way, because that's how it is in Hispanic culture. You have to follow the rules and you have to do as you're told. That means high expectations. My parents did not want my sister and I to repeat the same mistakes as they did when they were young. They wanted my sister and I to not be failures and to be successful. And that's why they put a lot of pressure on the both of us to get good grades, to get a good job, and to be successful, because they didn't want us to fail.